everyone. Welcome back to Keeping Score, your go-to podcast for all things professional women's sports. I'm your host, Emma Askren, alongside Dylan Heinrich. And today we've got a lot in store for you. We only had two PWHL games, so of course we've got to talk about those. But then we have a player feature on Sarah Nurse coming up and a little NWSL feature on the new kits that were just released. So stay tuned for that. We've got some big things coming for today's podcast. But of course, all things, we got to start off with some dopes and nopes. What are your dopes and nopes for the week, Dylan?
Yes. So I hate to bring people down. We'll start negative first. We'll take you back to Tuesday in Missouri. It was 80 degrees around 1 p.m., feeling great, and then it just plummeted. Like it was 30 degrees and hailing by the time it hit 10 p.m. Just miserable time to be outside. Had to run home in the hail. Not a fan. Was not a fun Tuesday for me. But positive, this weekend is very fun. Very fun for me personally in Missouri. We've got a film festival, the True Falls Film Festival that comes around. Going to be going to a basketball game as a fan for once and not a reporter. Didn't know that could happen. Also, this Missouri basketball team does not deserve fans, but hey, it happens from time to time.
So
It's
real.
been a rough year for the Tigers if you know anything about men's or women's basketball. And then it's a good week. I'm hanging out with you guys. I'm hanging out with my favorite co-host Emma. Gonna put together some more socials for y'all. I know I've been slacking a little bit, but we will get those out. And I know you guys love our social posts. It's one of my favorite parts too. So we will get that out too. Well, Emma, what's your week been looking like?
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know how I can follow up the drastic weather changes of the Midwest. We've had a couple here, but not nearly going from 80 to hailing. I don't know how I can follow that up, but my nope for the week, I'm gonna end on a high note with my dope at the end. But my nope is that I tried a new podcasting software and it did not work very well. So we are back to Zoom because Zoom is classic. We know how to work it. And it turns out all right. So bummer for the poor podcasting software, but it's all right. You win some and you lose some. And my dub, or my dope in this case, is ski touring. Yeah, it's basically where like a horse gets pulled or pulls a skier or a snowboarder on snow and they race down Main Street and they try to like do tricks and stuff. And I'm really excited. And I'm so excited to wear my Western gear in 10-degree weather in Leadville because it's gonna be cold there. But yeah, I'm super excited, and I'll talk about it on the podcast next week, I'm sure. But yeah, very exciting stuff.
If you leave a comment on one of our social media posts, we will send you a video of the ski jumper, and I guarantee you will love it. And besides, if you haven't been to Leadville, Colorado, go. It's phenomenal, phenomenal place. There are almost no better places I would rather be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe like Vegas over spring break is where I would rather be because it's gonna be warmer, and I'm also covering Mountain West Championships, so that is so exciting. That's also my other dope for the week. Is that I just got confirmations for my flights and my Airbnb to go to Vegas over spring break. Won't be able to party it up because I will be literally working every single day, but I'm really excited, and it's a great opportunity. But yeah, I mean, ski touring is really cool. So leave a comment and ask me how it went.
Yes, in case you guys didn't know, Emma's a big deal. So,
I don't know about
well,
that. Let's talk about some people who are a little bit more famous than us. The PWHL stars. There were only two games this weekend, so we're going to talk about them pretty briefly before we dive into our regularly scheduled content. That first game was Toronto versus Minnesota, and the second game was Ottawa versus New York. So Toronto scored 4 points on Minnesota's three. And this was a huge win for Toronto because this is putting them third in the standings. They were already there. However, it put them substantially closer to Minnesota for that second place rank. And they're only 1 point away. So any game that Minnesota or Toronto plays is going to boost them to second or third, depending on the way that game goes. Really close standings in the top three right now. And again, any game that is played is going to switch the table around. And I love that. It's going to be really exciting to see kind of who's going to go into the playoffs because it seems like any game is going to swing the table. Let's talk about the actual game that was played though. Scoring out started off strong in the first minute by Toronto's Blair Turnbull. We've heard a lot about her, that physicality aspect of the Toronto roster. She scored in the 5th minute. It wouldn't be a close game between these two solid teams if Minnesota didn't respond 2.5 minutes, or I'm sorry, 2 minutes later by Sophie Jacques, and she was actually traded from Boston. So she's a new player on Minnesota. She wasn't getting a lot of good opportunities at Boston, and she is clearly already making a name for herself for Minnesota. So it's just, I mean, clearly that trade has been working out well for both Sophie Jacques and Minnesota. That concludes the scoring for that first period. There were 2 goals scored, and it was tied 1-1 going into the second period, where Toronto's Callie Flanagan scored in the 2nd minute on the power play. So one of those great opportunities that I don't think we talk about enough was actual teams converting on the power play. Callie Flanagan was able to do so for Toronto. And then Minnesota got scoring back tied up in the 11th minute by Natalie Buchbinder. It isn't French, but I'm also horrible pronouncing last names. So apologies to Natalie. But she was assisted by our own Kendall Coyne Schofield and Melissa Chanel. So awesome stuff to see there. It was a really solid goal and something that Minnesota needed to keep their confidence up throughout that second period. Going into the third period, in the 15th minute, so for 3/4 of that game, there was no scoring going on. And of course, Sarah Nurse had to be the one to get her stick on the puck and shoot that goal. And yeah, I mean, she was assisted by Renata Fast, who is someone we've also talked a little bit about. Sarah Nurse hasn't been able to score that many goals, but boy, am I glad we're doing a player feature on her now because she was able to get her name on the score sheet for this game. Minnesota quickly responded 4 minutes later with just enough time to spare in that third period. Only 20 seconds left about by Sophie Jacques. So she got a brace for herself, and the goalie was pulled by Toronto for Minnesota by this goal. So usually when we see a goalie being pulled, it ends up going in the opposing team's favor. However, it actually worked out for Minnesota this time, and Sophie Jacques was able to get a brace on the score sheet for herself, sending it to overtime. Toronto in classic Toronto fashion, Sarah Nurse coming back in full force, getting her name on the puck, scoring a brace for herself in the 3rd minute of overtime. So sending that victory to Toronto. Another overtime win. We have one power play conversion for Toronto, but there was only one power play for Minnesota, and they weren't able to convert. Nicole Hensley made 20 out of 24 saves in the game. Again, Toronto had 4 goals. A little bit of disappointing stuff for Hensley, but still really good work. Goaltending is a key piece in the PWHL, in my opinion. And then Kristen Campbell of Toronto was able to save 27 out of 30. So it wasn't really either of these players' nights, but could have been a lot worse.
This Toronto team, they keep finding ways to win. They're gutting it out. They're getting nice and dirty. Again, not always is this run going to stay forever, but they've put themselves from literally last in the PWHL all the way up to challenging for second place. They've also got a game in hand for Minnesota. So right now, I believe they have a higher average point total than Minnesota too. So they're on the fast track to the number 2 seed right now. They just got to keep it up. They got to keep winning. They got to keep relying on their stars. You've got Renata Fast, Emma Maltese, Sarah Nurse, obviously, Jocelyn LaRoque. When we first talked about this team, and I believe it was either episode 1 or episode 2, we were like, there's a lot of talent, but they just can't seem to put it together. Now that everything's kind of gelling, it's clicking. This is now 6 wins in a row. Staying out of that loss column. I also think Kristen Campbell has been an unsung hero. Again, 27 out of 30 isn't going to light up the stat sheet, especially what she's been doing recently. Still another solid performance, able to get the win. You face more shots than Nicole Hensley of Minnesota, but you make more saves. Just did her part for her team and didn't allow any in overtime, which again, those are very easy to give up goals. Discredit nothing from Sarah Nurse, who has had an absolutely phenomenal game this time around. Got 2 goals, doubled her goal total from the year. Good to see her coming up in the big moments. What's probably the most amazing part is we didn't see Natalie Spooner on this score sheet at all, and she's still Toronto's best goal scorer. This team is scary good, and I think they're definitely the sneaky pick to win the PWHL trophy as of right now.
This is a Toronto roster that we talked about being really physical. They've been able to bring that physicality and kind of just muscle their way through these games. And as bad as that sounds, it is working very well for Toronto. So honestly, I'm all here for that muscling. Get it, girls.
Speaking of muscling their way to a win, Ottawa able to get a big home win against New York. We'll start first period. Only one goal was scored, coming from Savannah Harmon of Ottawa. Her third goal of the year came totally unassisted. Great play by her to whack one past the goaltender. Ottawa keeping the offensive pressure going in the second period, just about halfway through the period. Fanny Garat Gaspariks, I believe that's right. Fanny Garat Gaspariks gets her first career goal in the PWHL, shorthanded against with the assist of Becca Gilmore, puts Ottawa up 2-0. One of those jailbreak goals. Again, you see them sometimes, these shorthanded goals, absolutely loving it in the PWHL, adds a different aspect. Literally 40 seconds later, not even, Chloe O'Rourke gets a goal back, her first in the PWHL, cuts Ottawa's lead down to 1. But New York wasn't done yet, as they were able to tie the game just about halfway into the third period. I believe that's Jaime Barbones got her second goal in the PWHL, might be Jamie, with the assist from Alex Carpenter on the power play again. Alex Carpenter continuing to make those plays, tied up. New York had a real chance, but Ottawa able to finally push through with just about 4 minutes left in the game, 4:06. Gabby Hughes gets her fifth goal with the assist from Amanda Boulier. And then Ottawa, adding insult to injury, scores with 4 seconds left. Lexi Agia gets her fifth goal, assisted by Katerina Morozova. Her third assist. Just great way from Ottawa, not getting rattled in those last minutes, able to pull out that win. Only had one power play on the game, but Emmerich Mashmeyer makes 24 out of 26 saves. Great performance from her, gets them with the win. Good showing from New York. Can't quite get the win. They go 1 of 4 on the power play. Do give up that shorthanded jailbreak goal. Abigail Levy gets 26 out of 29 saves. Solid performance, just not quite enough to get the win, as New York still trying to find their footing.
This game tied them up in the points, both at 16 points. Definitely not where either of these teams want to be, but a 4-2 victory for Ottawa means big stuff. So only hopefully bigger and better things for Ottawa. And New York, after coming off with a really great start to the season, they're kind of having um an opposite occurrence than PWHL Toronto, where they're not able to really convert anything anymore. And something needs to change for this New York team to get them out of the bottom seat of the table if they want to make a playoff run.
This was a pretty short week again. We missed a couple of the games happening on Saturday and Sunday due to editing purposes, but for those games, again, you can just check the PWHL standings online, check the results. Those are always very reliable, and they should be posting them out on YouTube. They've got plenty of highlights online. So there are more than one way to consume your PWHL talk. And for us, we're going to look at some of the bigger picture, and one of the players who is definitely a bigger persona is Sarah Nurse, if you want to kick us off, Emma.
Yeah, so we talked about Sarah Nurse a lot this episode, and we're just going to keep that train rolling. That is for sure. So Sarah Nurse is definitely someone who has been around for a hot minute, not as long as a player like Hillary Knight, who is kind of the face of the U.S. women's hockey side. Sarah Nurse is the face of the Canadian women's hockey side. She was on the cover of NHL last year. So, yeah, she's earned that spot, rightfully so, as the face of Canadian women's hockey. She was born in 1995, so she's currently 29 years old and clearly still playing her heart and soul out. She plays for PWHL Toronto, like we mentioned. She's played for quite a few teams in her professional career. First off, in order to even get her to her professional career, however, she played for the Wisconsin Badgers, which we will get into in a second. She spent 1 year in the Canadian Women's Hockey League for the Toronto Furies before they folded in 2019. PHF, she played for them for a little bit before she just kind of dedicated her time to the national team. And now that the PWHL has started up, she's obviously playing for Toronto, but she's also on the executive committee for the Players Association. So she's also taking off the ice leadership aspect, which is, again, something that sounds very similar to a lot of our player features, but these players deserve the features and they're going to have very similar resumes. But not to discredit anything that Nurse has done, let's kind of bring it back to collegiate play. Started her time off in Wisconsin. In 2013, which is when she started playing for Wisconsin, she was on the All Women's Collegiate Hockey Association rookie team. So she was making very quickly, She really said, "Put me in, coach." The next year, she was the Frozen Face-Off Most Outstanding Player of the Year, and in as well as making the all tournament team and the third team in 2015-16 season. She was the second team All-American in her senior season, and she was on the WCHA anniversary 20th of the 20th year of their existence on the 20th anniversary team. So really, really, really loaded resume for Nurse at the Wisconsin Badgers. There's a reason why she was drafted very, very high. She sat at second overall in the CWHL draft in 2019. What are your thoughts on her collegiate play?
I mean, yeah, it's not much to say. I'm excited that we are getting outside of the Boston area for once. A lot of good talent there, but I mean, you see it a lot more, especially on the men's side, but on the women's side as well. You get players from Canada who come down to the States to go combine that education piece with the athletics piece. And Sarah Nurse, while again, maybe not the most eye-popping stats, no Patty Kazmaier this time around, still making a crucial role to a very talented Wisconsin team who has just been on the up and up for the past 10 years. There's a reason why she was picked number 2. Not only is she that point scorer, goal scorer, she also is able to play physical for a style that fits the Toronto team and something, again, we've talked about the emergence of physicality in the last 10, 15 years in women's hockey. Sarah Nurse has absolutely been a huge part of leading that revolution.
She's taking that off ice leadership aspect to maybe push for a little bit more physicality. That's something all the players said they wanted. So hopefully she's doing that a little bit. We'll briefly touch on her CWHL time. Again, she only spent 1 year there before it folded in 2019. She was drafted second overall by the Toronto Furies. So kind of keeping her name there in Toronto. She's from Ontario as well. She wasn't playing super well there, but she did score her first goal. Where she broke a 1-1 tie in that game. But either way, like there's not a lot of stuff, not very notable. She only played one season there, so she wasn't able to get her feet under her. But she did play in the PWHPA, which was that semi-professional league that was kind of just filling in the gaps during the time of the absence of the NWHL and the CWHL and awaiting the PWHL. She participated in the Canadian side of the PWHPA Dream Gap Tour. So that was just kind of the tour that the league went on to visit certain cities, and she participated in the Canadian leg of that tour. It was such an uneasy time there that she wasn't able to really solidify any statistics or anything like that.
You look at this again, she happened to emerge from college in a very tumultuous time for pro women's hockey, unfortunately. CWHL was in turmoil. The PHF was not in a good spot, but she came in just in time to be another part of that PWHPA. That sounds right. The Players Association, which again has started to prove to be a huge revolution. Again, there's a reason why everyone we're talking about has been a part of that Players Association, been very impactful for pro women's hockey. But again, just putting herself out there, getting her opportunities when she can, being quite grateful. And like you mentioned, a free agency signing from Toronto. While, again, no Patty Kazmaier award, maybe not like 60 goals in a year. She's just one of those winning type players. She's someone who's both a leader on and off the ice, just someone who is absolutely a great representative for not only the PWHL, not only women's hockey, but the sport of hockey as a whole.
Yeah, and you kind of see that especially in her involvement with I think it was called Nursey Night, and she invited a bunch of female people of color who were younger to come in and watch a game and then spend some time on the ice with her. And I think she's just a huge role model. She is able to represent people who you don't see very often playing hockey, not only as a woman, but a person of color. And that's something that she kind of really fights for during her time on the ice and being such a face of the Canadian women's national team. It's really cool to see just a player fighting for equality on and off the ice. We will move on to her international play now. She started international play in 2011, where she was participated in the U18 championship and she won gold in 2011 and bronze in 2012. And then of course she was a member of the Canadian team during the 2013 IIHF World Women's U18 championship. So she has been on the international stage for a very, very long time. At the 2015, she participated in the Four Nations Cup as a part of Team Canada and the U22 team, and they won a gold medal there too. But most notably, she was named to the 2022 Olympic team for Team Canada, and she set two new Olympic records, not only for the most points scored in the Olympics, but also the most assists like given out in a single women's tournament. 18 points, 13 assists. That is where she put her name on the map. Her PWHL time has only grown and only increased that standing more. And so there was, especially after that 2022 performance, there was no reason why Toronto did not want to sign her during free agency.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, grew up in Hamilton, Ontario. Still pretty close to Toronto. I mean, it's just a short drive up the road. Definitely the closest major city outside of Hamilton. And so getting to represent her hometown both in the C or this home area in a sense in the CWHL and then now in the PWHL, when you get to play for your local team, again, your family gets to come and support, all your friends get to come and see you whenever they play. Serves as someone who's constantly there, who's able to continue to make an impact in the community from again when she was very young to now being a little bit older, a little more seasoned, still able to make that difference, able to fight for what she believes in. And again, taking that role that she recognizes with herself as someone who is, again, a woman and a person of color in hockey and not shying away from the spotlight, not trying to hide the issues, but to highlight them and show, hey, not everything is perfect and trying to fight for that better future, which I think her and the PWHL as a whole are doing quite a good job of.
I have nothing better to say than the fact that she is not only a leader on the ice, but a mentor for her teammates and just women in hockey. People want to be like Sarah Nurse. Nothing better to say. On that note, we're going to take a quick break before we dive into our next segment where we're actually trying something new, a head-to-head segment. So stay tuned for that and take a quick little 10-second break with us. All right, everyone. Thank you for taking that quick break with us. We have a new segment. I don't know how often this will be coming up, but something I've been seeing on social media is the increase in youth, so under 18 players participating in professional women's sports. Most notably, this was McKenna Whitham of New York Gotham, where she was signed just to a preseason period, but she's 13 years old. When I was 13 years old, all I cared about is if my friends liked me, let alone professional women's athletes like Lynn Williams and the likes. Absolutely insane to see her being signed there. And she was also extending to NLL, where she signed with Nike. Absolutely wild. I personally am 100% against this. Dylan is more of a supporter of this. So I'll just kind of say my 2 cents and then you can take it away.
Absolutely. Fire away. I know this is something that you have a lot of passion for. And again, this is something that I don't think there's a right or a totally
Mm-hmm.
wrong in this debate. So again, if people want to argue this in the comments below, keep it civil. If you're calling us like mean names, you will not be allowed back in the clubhouse. I'm sorry, but again, we're gonna try something a little bit different. It's not all friendly. Emma and I are good friends, but we don't agree on 100% of things. So it's nice
Yeah.
to have a little bit of debate, something new in this episode.
This has been a trend not only in soccer, but professional women's sports and sports in general is just signing younger talent. I strongly disagree with this. I think that there is plenty of talent, especially within the United States and internationally, that is over the age of 18 that has gone through college and is able to play professionally at a high level. You don't need to bring in a 13-year-old who is a sprite, who has young legs, whatever you want to call it, but you don't need to bring in a 13-year-old into your training camp to have good talent. You have players who are playing in college. I mean, talk to them while they're in college, things like that. Especially with NIL, that's an option now. And I think it's just you're just encouraging injury by playing at such a high and elite level like the NWSL. and abroad. You are encouraging the already existing problems with the medical industry in professional women's sports. Knee injuries, ACL tears, MCL tears, Achilles tears, leg injuries in professional women's sports are a huge, huge problem that is not being addressed. And by introducing new talent where they're already going to be going through, these people are still growing. They're young. They're still going through changes like in their body. And by pushing them at an elite level so quickly and so soon, you're just setting them up for knee injuries in their 20s, knee injuries in their 30s when they could still be in their prime, when professional women's athletes wouldn't be getting those until later on in their prime. In my opinion, it's not a good look for the NWSL. Why are you trying to recruit 13-year-olds when you have plenty of other good talent in college? That's my 2 cents about it, but
No, you did make a lot of great points. There are a lot of talented women in the end of the day, but I think another thing to consider is like, first of all, how does McKenna Whitham feel about this? I mean, talk about an opportunity for her, like getting to score the game-winning goal alongside some of the greatest players in the modern day. Like, you can say what you want, but like I do agree that at the end of the day, there are a lot of great players. But if she can prove that she's one of the best players in the world at only 13, like you think about like what the NBA, they used to be able to come right out of high school and you could be 18 years old and still playing in the NBA. And I do think it is important to note this is only a preseason one for 13. I do not want to endorse 13-year-olds playing in the league full time whatsoever. That is definitely too young. I definitely do think Pfeiffer, who is 15 and playing for KC, is still pushing it, but I think if there's any sport and there's any league that can handle it, I think it's the NWSL. I think they have an extremely strong culture. There's no malice intent when it comes to players. There's no intent to injure. While I don't think there's any intent to injure in the PWHL, but the risk for injury is so much higher when it comes to the hitting and the boards. But I do think that the talent, especially in young women's soccer, is so great to be able to give these young women the opportunity to live out their professional dreams and to play for such a high level. It's going to only help them develop, not only as players, but as people. Because, I mean, talk about built-in mentors. Like, if you are, like you said, 13 years old and you get to hang out every day with Lynn Williams, like, that is an undeniable advantage in both your professional career and your personal life. Like that is something that very few people have the opportunity of doing. I do think maybe 15 is a little young. I think 16 or 17 is starting to get into that gray area. And then 18, I think, is absolutely fine when it comes to being a full-time player. But when you think about like this preseason deal for Gotham, and now that she's got that preseason experience with Gotham, now that she knows the organization, she knows the ownership, that gives a huge advantage to Gotham. If they're like, hey, now that you are ready to go pro, you already know what our system's like, you already know what our owners, our coaches are like, assuming that's all the same. So from an organizational standpoint and from a player standpoint, it does make a lot of sense. I do think the risk for injury is high. That is something, again, that is a huge focus that needs to be pushed into women's soccer. But I think that just because there's been struggles, I think that you can't limit and just destroy the dreams of young people and just put a ceiling or put a cap on their potential just because of their age. And so I do think, again, it's something you got to very tailor around. You got to keep it very much in check, letting them live out their dreams if they've got the talent, if they've got the willpower, and they show that they have the maturity to be able to handle that. Again, I guarantee her parents are very supportive. There've been a lot more discussive talks than just us in our respective rooms. And so this will not be something that will be solved in a day. I do think that there's plenty of conversations, but I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see more of these like 15, 16, 17-year-olds who continue to get signed with the NWSL.
I don't have a problem with 16 to 18 players playing full time. But I just wanted to raise a couple concerns based off of what you were saying, where you said, how does she feel about it? Well, I mean, knowing me as a 13-year-old, granted, I didn't play soccer at 13, but if I did and I was training as hard as McKenna Whitham, I would take any opportunity to play for a professional team. in a heartbeat. But is that really the best thing? Because granted, her parents are probably helping her out and making sure that she's making the right decision. And I certainly hope that Gotham is making the right decision and supporting McKenna, but it just feels wrong. Like it just doesn't feel right to having to playing with a player who is 10 years younger than you in the case of players in their prime, you know? And grant, yes, it is a preseason game. And yes, I am talking about mostly only a player who's playing in the preseason, but it's also not these professional players' jobs to kind of mentor a 13-year-old. They don't have the knowledge and life experience to be a pro player, in my opinion. And I think it's just setting them up for future injuries because now they're going to say, well, if I don't get called up for the next preseason, if they don't get signed, well, if I don't get called up, what happens if I get injured in preseason? Well, if you tear your ACL at 13, that's definitely not good. I don't have a problem with skipping college because I think if you have the talent at 18 years old, that's fine. But by missing out on high school, on middle school at 13, things like that, you're missing out not only on like potential playing time at your high school club, but also like social experiences. Because if you grow up only having your social experiences with 25 to 30-year-olds, you're going to be a very different person, for better or for worse, than you would be if you hung out with kids your age. That's my 2 cents. I don't like it. I don't support it, but I'm also not the one in the front office making the decisions. I'm just a lowly reporter and a fan. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the preseason one is definitely the one that kind of puts everything on the radar, especially that Whitham has signed with Nike, which again, she is going to be the biggest deal and is definitely going to be the epicenter for US women's soccer if everything goes according to plan. But I think the one that we talk about that is more permanent is going to be Alex Pfeiffer. Like you mentioned, the KC Currents 15-year-old player. Well, it's nothing new to sign a 16 or a 17-year-old. 15 is definitely a little bit of a different milestone. I mean, you look at it, 16, you get your driver's license, you are get a lot more freedom. 15 is like, well, again, everyone is different in stages of development from 15 to 16. 16 is like an overall benchmark that you can just tell. She was, I'm looking at this now. Pfeiffer was born like a full 2 years after me on November 26, 2007, which just doesn't seem right. Like, yeah,
And the fact that she's playing professional soccer and she's younger than me is like wild. I don't even know why, but it's
crazy.
wild.
Like, not, I don't mean to date you, but like a lot younger, like 4 years younger. So, but I
Thanks,
mean,
thanks, Dylan.
I'm 3 years older than her too. So like I definitely do think that when it comes to sports, as you can probably attest to this as a swimmer, the social experience you have in high school is great, but oftentimes the closest people are going to be your teammates. Like it doesn't matter if it's your club team, if it's your high school team, or now in the case of Alex Pfeiffer, her pro team, because at the end of the day, they're all just women in sports. It's we talk about it a lot, and I mean the age difference is absolutely there, but they're all, still all there to support each other, to help one another out, and I definitely do think that she will be protected by the fellow women who are in that locker room, who are willing to say, she's got the talent, she's got the willpower, she's got the drive, but now it is I don't think it's their responsibility, but I definitely do think a lot of the players will take it upon themselves to say, okay, here are the ropes. Here's what you have to know, not only as a pro soccer player, but also what's learning to grow up and be a successful woman, be a successful soccer player, be a better person. It's not exactly new to see people who are younger than the age of 18 to try and fight for something more, to really try and push the barrier. And if you can break in and start to live out your life dreams at the age of 15, then who are we to try and stop and put a ceiling on that?
Either way, neither of us are going to be able to impact what happens, but I think it's fair that concerns are expressed or support is expressed. So I feel like this
Yeah.
was a very good segment, and
Regardless of
yeah,
where we stand, we wish the best for Alex Pfeiffer in her first
yes.
year. We will definitely be keeping track of her progress and seeing how things go as for a 15-year-old, but what I do want to say, very impressive, very proud of Alex Pfeiffer to be able to pull that off, depending on all the scenarios around it.
On that note, we will move on to something maybe a little bit happier for Dylan and a little bit less happy for me, but our moment of the week, still both serious in either way.
Yes. So we're continuing this soccer trend the entire back half. Now that I realize that this podcast is all NWSL talk. We've got the kickoff in just about 2 weeks. I'm very excited for that. Yes, I can see Emma is quite possibly, as you can see, jumping with joy at a certain point. But before then, we had the Gold Cup, which is all the CONCACAF teams. This news might be a little
CONCACAF.
Yes, this news might be a little outdated as the quarterfinals are happening both this weekend that this is being recorded, but during the group stages, I'm sure you heard about it. Mexico beating the US women's national team on American soil for the first time since 2000 when Canada did it. So literally a millennium, pretty much. US had won 80 straight matchups and on American soil, just an absolutely crazy, crazy stat. Mexico able to get the 2-0 win and advance into the quarterfinals. The US also made it to the next round. While I'm not
By
positive
the
this will
skin of
happen
their teeth.
by the skin of their teeth, yes. Gold Cup, I think, is highly underrated when it comes to like just pro soccer or soccer tournaments in general, international tournaments. This has been an absolutely phenomenal run so far, and I am so very excited. I will definitely be at least doing my best to tune into the games wherever you can find them. If not, the highlights will absolutely be in my queue no matter what. See, I'm sure Emma, you are a huge women's soccer fan. What are your thoughts on this?
It was disappointing for the US. It's really disappointing that the attitude of the US women's national team is interesting to say the least right now. And this win hopefully put things in perspective because this tournament is going to be the qualifiers for the Olympics. And if they don't win, they're not going to the Olympics. But that performance against Mexico, I mean, I watched the highlights and they just looked disheveled almost. When they were playing in November, they looked a little bit better. All I know is I'm excited for the UEFA Women's Champions League to be done with. So that way
Mhm.
we can get the head coach of Chelsea, Emma Hayes, back. Maybe she can be our saving grace, especially going into the Olympics. However, on a different side, props to Mexico, man. They were able to see the flaws in the US women's national team and took that and ran with it because they were playing so well. Mexico was playing out of their minds and they were just running circles around the US. It was wild to see because normally Mexico is a team that we beat pretty easily. And now, I mean, wow, what an outstanding performance for Mexico. And they deserve that win far more than we could ever deserve that win in this performance. So props, props, props to Mexico in that performance. Really good stuff.
We talk about the disappointment from the US side, but I mean, at the end of the day, what a phenomenal win for Mexico, beating them on the home soil. This will be a very fascinating end of the tournament because I mean, at the end of the day, no one would have been shocked if the US women's team just ran away with everything, but now that Mexico gets that huge win in the group stage, no less, now it throws it into doubt. Now everything is single elimination. Europe's still far and away the best continent when it comes to women's soccer or soccer in general. You look at what Spain is doing, they have one of, if not the most talented teams ever in women's soccer. They are a
Oh my
juggernaut.
goodness, yeah.
We will definitely talk about that more as we get closer to the Olympics, but CONCACAF, still putting out some really, really good soccer.
I just kind of wanted to say a brief little statement about the
Yes.
Spanish women's national team. I saw a tweet on Twitter where it was like, who do you think would win in a matchup? The 2018-19 women's national team, US, or the 2023-24 Spanish women's national team? And that is my Roman Empire right now. Because honestly, I have no idea who would win that. Because both of those teams, I mean, the 2019 Women's World Cup, we dominated. Like, it was wild. Like, And so did Spain. Like literally crazy. I don't know. I don't know who would win, but that is my Roman Empire, and I just wanted to say that because I can't remember who tweeted it out, but I retweeted it. So props to whoever did that. Shout out because that has been living rent free in my head. We will move on to my moment of the week, which is definitely on a less happy note, but I talked about the ACL injuries and knee injuries and leg injuries that had been happening to women. And I just wanted to say there were 5 injuries, 5 ACL injuries in the span of 1 week in February. Camila Arrieta tore her ACL on February 13th. June Endo tore hers on February 14th. Lena Halsicki tore hers on the 17th. Excuse me, on the 17th. Mallory Granges, tore hers on the 19th, and then Mia Fischel tore hers on the 20th. And there's more. Like there's been a couple injuries now that have happened. Most notably, Viviana Miedema of the Dutch women's national team and an Arsenal player. She tore her ACL in January of last year, and she just had to undergo knee surgery again. So she's missing out on the Olympics after having made a incredible comeback from that injury, but she has to undergo knee surgery again. Disappointing to see this happening from mostly a women's side. I've done a little bit of research, and the way women's bodies are made is we are substantially more susceptible to knee injuries in high impact sports like soccer, lacrosse, things like that. But also, this is the first time the NWSL and international leagues are playing on a higher intensity schedule, more relatively compared to that of the men. But we're not, or the women, I should say, are not receiving the same amount of support for that higher playing. FIFA released a report on the Women's World Cup that just happened in 2023, and they said that, I mean, because there was, again, it was basically a battle of who had the least ACL tears in that game in the Women's World Cup. I say that as a joke, but there were so many teams that had star players out due to knee injuries. And they said it was a lack of proper resources and an increase in playing time for their club teams. So what needs to happen is these clubs need to start dedicating more of their funding towards athletic training, recovery, things like that. Because, I mean, a lot of it has been up to the players, and it is extremely disappointing to see, I mean, 5 players in 7 days in February tearing their ACLs. Absolutely ridiculous. It's just blow after blow after blow is what it seems like in the women's soccer industry.
It's a massive, massive problem in women's soccer, both pro and club and college. It's just crazy. Again, like you mentioned, it's that constant stress on the ACL. It's the higher season total. It's the lack of support. It's just a little bit of everything. I want to say props to these women. Like, it's a tough recovery process. It's tough to put yourself out there, understanding the risk. And again, we wish all of these ladies the absolute best in their recovery period. But at a certain point, it's not enough to just say, we wish you get better. It's what can we do to fix this? How can this be solved? Because
Mm-hmm.
if everyone keeps getting hurt, that not only is that not good for the sport, but it's not good, again, for the individual players. That drives down interest. It drives down a bunch of things. There is no world which an injury does good. That's at the end of the day, it is arguably the worst thing in sports because no one benefits. There's not a winner and a loser. There's just losers. And
Yeah.
it's just,
And I
it
mean,
sucks.
it's horrible. And going back to kind of the debate we had about the 13-year-old playing, all of these players who I mentioned were under 26 years old, which is shocking. I mean, they're in their prime of soccer. This was in season or preseason, in a training or in a game, and it was for both club and country football. So these, I mean, ACL tears happen across all facets of women's soccer, and it's something that needs to be done, needs to have more extensive research. Yeah, I mean, something needs to change, that's for sure. We are going to take a quick break before we move on to our final fun segment, and we will end this podcast on a substantially happier note than what we just did. Take that quick break with us, and we'll be back with you in a second. All right, everyone. Thank you for taking that short break with us. We've got one more segment for you guys, and then we will let you go on with your lovely day. Let's talk about the NWSL kits. This is the first time in NWSL history that there has been a league-wide refresh of kits. So Nike is the kit sponsor for the NWSL, so they were able to do this because they're the only league-wide sponsor for these jerseys. And I thought it would be fun if we do a top three and bottom three. So our overall winners and losers of the kits for this upcoming season. Let's go ahead and start off with the ultimate loser of the league. Who'd you have?
Yeah, the ultimate loser. We hate to say it, but it is the new expansion team, Bay FC. Like their jerseys, at least I think everyone else in their rankings, they at least tried. Like there was an effort made. Bay FC, first of all, I get what they're trying to do. They're going like old and classical and like the old black and white, but man, it's just so boring. Like the home one's got at
Yeah.
least some pattern on it, but I still don't. It's all black, white, and gray. And then the away one is just black, no pattern on it added onto it. There were so many cool things you could have done, and like you and I both agree, the cooler that they are, the more you add onto it. But for this one, man, there's not a lot to say because there's not a lot there.
A tragedy, honestly. As an expansion team, I would have loved to see a more interesting kit. Hopefully, maybe next year they'll be able to do something a little bit spicier, but very, very disappointing stuff for Bay FC. I want to do a little plug really quick. I wrote an entire Twitter thread ranking all of the NWSL kits. So please go check out my social media, especially my Twitter. That's where I'm most active at Emma_Askren, Askren. My second place loser was Gotham FC. I love Gotham, love them, but the jerseys and the sash. You guys will know what I'm talking about, but it's a diagonal stripe across the home kit. I have just never liked them. They're bringing back something that they did with Sky Blue, so, props to them. But it's just bland. It's boring. It's not pretty. And also, their away kit and Kansas City's away kit are literally the same thing. It's literally the meme where it's like corporate needs you to find the difference between these two pictures, and it's the same picture because both of them are the same. Anyways, didn't like Gotham. Feel like they could have done a lot better, especially as the current champions of the NWSL. Disappointing to see what they did with their home kit.
I I disagree with you. I gotta be honest. I had Gotham as my fourth favorite since we're only going top three. I
Wow.
got rid of it. I mean, it's the colors, man. It's the black and it's the light blue. It can't look bad. Like the stripe, I think the like sash is okay. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but the gradients on it are so cool. I also do think that there are no like awful kits in this one. There's none that make me like want to vomit everywhere. There's a couple that are boring, that are bland, but none that make me want to like
True.
throw up. But I really like this Gotham one personally. I do agree that and the KC away kits, they're literally identical, which is frustrating, but I have no problems with this Gotham one. For my second, I went with Chicago. I mean, like I just there's sometimes you'll see in our number one that patterns are good in certain instances. For me, the oh, the Chicago pattern is awful. I hate it. I gotta be honest. Like, it's not an
Yeah.
awful one, but like the different like patterns and stuff with like the new secondary logo is just it doesn't look right. It looks like someone just like splattered lines everywhere and just like took six different designs. It doesn't feel like there's any cohesiveness in this jersey. I think the away kits, I think a lot of teams went safer with these away kits, and so it's hard to really pick any hate out of the away kit. I do like the soft blue coloring, but honestly, I would have preferred like a white kit for the away one. I got to be
I
honest.
don't
I mean,
know.
it's like it's the white. The colors are white, blue, light sky blue, and then the red. It's Chicago City. Chicago is embolized by those three colors, and so while I do like the dark blue color, I don't quite like it for the fit of the team, if that makes sense. Again, like I said, don't feel like there's any awful kits in here, but this one stuck out as one that I was like, I will also a lot of these we will need to see on the pitch, but Chicago is not doing it for me.
For my third place loser, I went with the Kansas City Current. I just couldn't. I love KC. I really do, and especially all the good things they're doing with their stadium. But oh my goodness, that's the best you could do. The best you could do was what has showed up now because I can't do it. I said what I said, and I feel horrible about it. But like, it's just not good. They're just not good.
The away kits, it's at least Gotham has a gradient and it kind of like spreads throughout the whole jersey. In my opinion, KC, it just kind of like cuts off halfway through. And so it looks like someone like half tie-dyed a shirt and then got bored and just
Yeah.
decided to quit. And the like the stripes on the home kit and then like the little band of teal on the sleeves. I don't know why, but that just doesn't feel right to me. I think the actual main design of it isn't terrible. I do like the colors, but the way they implemented the teal in both the home and the away just it doesn't look great.
Again, going back to the combination of jerseys, that Gotham and Kansas City's away kits are the same thing.
Mhm.
That granted, this was a standard that Nike's put in place with their away kits, as you'll see the diagonal split colors, but still, y'all could have gone with something different. Like you could have done something. And that's something I'm disappointed with Nike is that they're not able to add variety to their away kits and their home kits are very limited. But either way, like again, this is what we got. So you win some and you lose some.
My number three loser, it was close between this and KC. I went with Washington. I think the home kit is fine. I think it's the pattern is a little goofy, little odd, the black and the gray. It's fine. It's not great, it's fine. The away kit, they look like a highlighter.
I
Like
love
I
it.
no, you look like no, I just want to like highlight my English notes now. I don't want to watch you play soccer. Like
I think
they
it's hilarious. They went with
as
something different.
hilariously
Like yellow's not
bad.
even in their color scheme, and they said we're gonna be
Exactly.
yellow.
I'm like,
It's
it's not
awesome.
in their color scheme. And so it's again, it's like the Chicago one. It doesn't fit. And it just, oh my God. I'm very curious to see what some of these combinations look like on the field. If
Oh
we
my
get the
God.
Washington,
Imagine like the Kansas City home versus the Washington Spirit away.
oh, oh,
Lethal. Lethal. That would be so
no, man.
funny. Oh, at least we're
You'll be
gonna
able to
know
leave.
who Washington Spirit is when they're playing away. At least we'll know that. But
Yeah, you could see them from like 3 miles over. Like you
yeah.
will be able to spot them from space. I mean,
I have the North Carolina Courage as my number three. I I mean blue is like low key my favorite color. And I just think like the color scheme they went with for their home kit is it just looks clean. It's the perfect amount of pattern compared to chaos. And then their home kit, their away kit, I'm sorry too. It also looks really good. But I love the kind of salmon orange they went with here. And compared to their previous renditions, I mean, you look at it and they're not that great. The North Carolina Courage ate with these jerseys. And granted, the red really isn't in their color scheme that much, but you're going to be able to tell who they are. So I'm excited for that personally.
I do agree. I really like the salmon on the away jersey. It's or the away kit, excuse me. It's definitely like away kits are usually pretty hit or miss. It's just all comes down to coloring, and I think they got the color perfectly. The home one, I do like the pattern. I like that it's different. It's still got the Casey current problem where it's got like the like side panels with the little arm up to the sleeve.
I don't even mind that though. In this one, I don't mind it.
I think the red looks better on that than the teal, but it's still not my favorite, and I want to be consistent with my rankings. So this did not make my bottom three. It did not make my top three. I definitely think it's somewhere in the middle. Again, I would say overwhelmingly, most of these jerseys are like a 6 to a 7 ranking for me personally. So
Hmm.
again, take it with a grain of salt. That when I say that, I would still like I will watch these. I will not buy one of these, but I will absolutely not be like appalled watching them like some other jerseys have.
I
My number three, again, I talk about the colors and want to talk about an expansion team that did, in my opinion, do it right. It's the Utah Royals. Like, I think that these new kits that they put out with the like home coloring that they did is amazing. The outline of the mountains is phenomenal, all things considered. The mountain outline is so cool. It's like that royal yellow type color. The deep dark blue. Again, you mentioned how much you love your blue. In my opinion, this is a very, very solid debut. Maybe not the absolute best jersey, but it's definitely one that is going to stick out and one that is going to be very popular, in my opinion, among NWSL fans. Move on to, we'll start with your number two, Emma.
All right, my number two is the Orlando Pride. I love colors in my jerseys, and the Orlando Pride, I think, did this not as good as my number one, but still very good. Their jerseys are always so awesome, and the purple coloring, and I love how they tied in the Florida oranges with this jersey. I just think it looks really cool. And again, I love to see color, and that is something that we are definitely seeing more of in this NWSL release.
Yeah, oh my god, the away kit is so good. The rich purple is immaculate. I gotta be honest, I didn't know about the citrus kit when I was making this ranking. Otherwise, this may have cracked my top three. Again, the yellow and like the light or the citrus peach color and then that light blue still isn't quite clicking in my brain yet. I don't know if I like the idea. I really like it. I think it's really cool. Don't know if it's top three for me, but oh my god, the royal purple is so great. I cannot describe how cool it is. I'm a sucker for purples. Anything else to say before I move on to my number two?
Absolutely nothing.
Yes, this is going to hit close to you. But for me, it's another purple. It's the lavender purple. Emma's Emma does not agree with me,
I
but
have to. You're never gonna top this. You're never
it's
gonna top this absolute beauty of a kit.
if people can't
Never
tell,
gonna happen.
it's the Racing Louisville kit. So I really love this. I love the diamond patterns. I love the lavender color. Away kit, maybe a little basic, but I still do think the color they chose for it's pretty cool. But I am just like in Emma, put it away. Put it away, Emma.
How are you
It,
gonna top this?
the diamond patterns, it's the consistency, it's the white, it's the lavender. I am in love with this. We wanted Nike to do something different. Bam. There's something different. I would probably agree with you. It's not as good as that old jersey, but of the new collection, that was one of the ones that stuck out to me and was like, that is a jersey that I would consider buying. Or a kit, excuse me.
Yes, as much as I love the goated jersey, the most goated jersey of all time, I have to admit it was hard for me not to put Louisville in my top three because it's also, as a Kentuckian, it's also modeled after the like racing jerseys that the
Oh,
jockeys wear during the Kentucky Derby. So again, a team that's called Racing Louisville having racing jerseys is actually really cool, and I don't mind it at all. I just can't, I literally cannot compare it to this.
but the one that stands out far and away is the best. We both agree on it. It's the new San Diego Wave kits. They're so the home kit. Can't put into words how great it is. It's so incredible. Take it away, Emma.
Oh, wow. All I have to say. Best combination of both a home and away kit in the NWSL right now. I said it because you've got, I mean, we're gonna again put a picture of it up, but so don't worry. But like they really went with every day is beach day here with their home kit. And I just like I'm I just love it. I do kind of wish they replaced the white background with the dark blue of the wave because I feel like that would really make the colors pop. But that's also a very hot jersey to play in. If you think about playing in San Diego, having a dark background jersey is going to be really warm. So I can respect it. And I can't complain too much about these jerseys. They're so pretty and stunning to look at. I could totally see myself buying and wearing one of these jerseys, hands down. The away kit as well, the bright pink away kit, it's just going to stand out. Like, granted, I'm not a fan of pink by any stretch of the imagination, but I am always happy when somebody does something different, and that is something the Wave have done here. And I don't like pink, but I could definitely enjoy looking at these bubblegum pink jerseys that the San Diego Wave have put out.
Well, one of my battles that I have not talked about enough is we need more pink in pro sports jerseys. They did it. they chose the perfect pink coloring for it. The pink on the home kit is so pretty with like the sun rising and like all the wave, like it literally just looks like a San Diego sunset. It's hard to describe for me how great these kits are. I'm so excited to see these kits in action. It is by far and away, in my opinion, the number one and might be one of my favorite kits or jerseys ever, any sport. Like I would be so willing to buy one of these home San Diego jerseys. I'm actually going to start shopping as soon as we get off this.
Overall, I think the NWSL had some very good jerseys and some very bad jerseys. And I think there's definitely room for improvement on the creativity side with a lot of the teams here in the league. But overall, when you have a bright, awesome kit like San Diego, I'm taking this year's release as a win overall. I'd
Oh,
say out of 10, I think the overall kits are a 6.5 out of 10.
I agree with that statement. That's a really good assessment. And more than anything, I'm just so excited for the NWSL to be back, man. We've got 2 weeks
You're
until
telling
first
me.
kickoff. Just about. I know Emma's riding the train. So anything else you want to promote or plug before we get out of here for today?
On it, yeah, just follow our social medias, leave us a
As always.
comment down below. Make sure to follow Dylan and I on our personal social medias because we are very active on there, especially me on Twitter. Anyways, on that lovely note, I think that concludes today's episode of Keeping Score. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow on Spotify, and we will see you guys on Sunday. Boom.
Bang out.
Yes.